Okay, I want you to picture something. And I don't mean like a postcard image of a vacation. I want you to close your eyes and really imagine standing on the edge of a cliff in the Peruvian desert. It's hot. The wind is howling, that specific dry desert wind that feels like a hairdryer. And you look out toward the horizon.
It's a stark landscape, beautiful in a terrifying way, but really harsh.
Right, but as you look down, for 8 full kilometers, that's 5 miles, the earth looks wrong.
Yeah, wrong is a good word.
It looks decimated like the surface of the moon, just pockmarked with thousands upon thousands of craters.
If you didn't know better, you'd think it was a bombing range. Or maybe the aftermath of a massive meteor shower.
Exactly, but these aren't meteors, and they aren't geological features. Every single one of those holes, and we were talking about a landscape that looks like Swiss cheese, was dug by a human being.
By hand, shovels and pickaxes. It's staggering.
By hand. These are looting pits. And inside those holes, it's not just dirt, it's broken pottery, ancient textiles that have been shredded, and human bones just bleaching in the sun.
It is the aftermath of industrial scale theft.
It's a crime scene. A massive crime scene that stretches for miles and goes back decades.
But then, I want you to contrast that image with a totally different one. Shift gears completely with me.
Okay.
Picture a guy sitting in his living room in, say, the United States. He's got a laptop, maybe a coffee. He's comfortable. And he's scrolling through Google Earth.
The modern explorer's tool of choice.
Right.
No pith helmet required.
He's zooming in on a patch that same Peruvian desert, miles away from where the looters are, and he spots a shadow. Just a faint geometric shape that looks a little too perfect to be a rock formation.
Something that just catches the eye.
Right. He marks the GPS coordinates, he packs his bags, he flies to Peru, and he walks out into the middle of nowhere.
And that is where the story gets wild. Because he doesn't just find a few rocks. He finds a massive, undocumented pyramid that professional archaeologists have largely ignored.
It sounds like the plot of a movie, doesn't it? Like Indiana Jones meets Mr. Robot. But this is real life. It is. And it's the subject of today's deep dive.
Welcome in. Today we are unpacking a sprawling, absolutely mind-bending conversation between Joe Rogan and Raul Bilecky. And sprawling is the right word. This was a 3-hour marathon.
It was intense. I mean, they went everywhere. They covered everything from the grim reality of the black market to high strangeness anomalies.
Our mission today is to take that 3 hours of conversation and distill it into a guide for you. We are going to walk through the tragedy of the looted sites, the viral controversy of the so-called alien mummies, and the discovery of lost pyramids that were literally carved out of the bedrock.
And we have to talk about the friction, too. Because when the guy with a laptop starts finding things that, tenured professors missed, people get upset.
Oh, the gatekeeping is real. But before we get to the pyramids and the aliens, let's talk about Raul. Because he is not your typical academic, is he? He doesn't have, patches on his elbows.
Not even close. And I think that's why this conversation resonates with so many people. Raul Bilecky isn't an archaeologist. He doesn't have a PhD in anthropology. He's a video editor.
A video editor?
Yeah. He's a guy who creates content.
Yeah.
But he's also a guy who, as a kid, read Graham Hancock's Fingerprints on the Gods.
Ah, the gateway drug for ancient mysteries. I know it well.
It really is. It's the book that launched 1,000 expeditions. Raul read that, got hooked on the idea that human history might be older and more complex than we're told, and he decided, you know what? I'm not just going to watch documentaries. I'm going to go look.
I love that. It's the ultimate hold my beer moment. But instead of doing something stupid, he's doing something scientific in a way.
Well, scientific in approach, if not in credentials. He started the YouTube channel Pills of the Past, and he represents this new wave of what we call citizen archaeologists. These are people who are using modern technology, drones, high-res, satellite imagery, Google Earth, to do the legwork that major institutions simply aren't funding.
Or are just too bureaucratic to tackle.
Yeah, exactly. And Raul is all in. He mentioned in the conversation that he basically went broke funding his first expedition.
He went broke doing this.
Yeah. He's not doing this for a grant. He's passionate. He's skeptical, which is important. And we'll get to that with the mummies, but he's open-minded.
And he's brave, or maybe a little crazy. He's going to these remote, dangerous places solo.
Solo is key. When you hear about where he's going, you realize how risky that is. You are out in the desert, hours from help, in areas controlled by traffickers.
Well, let's talk about that risk. Let's go back to that moonscape I mentioned at the top, the looting. Because I think people have this romantic idea of finding treasure. You know, you dig a hole, you find a gold mask, you get rich. But the reality Raul describes is, it's just gut-wrenching.
It is. He calls it the scourge of the Huaycaros.
Huaycaros, that's the local term.
Right. It comes from Huaca, which means a sacred place or a ruin. So a Huaycaro is someone who mines the ruins, a grave robber.
A grave robber.
And when Raul describes flying his drone over the Paracas and Nazca regions, the scale is hard to comprehend. It truly is.
You said 8 kilometers. That's massive.
It's continuous destruction. Imagine walking for an hour and seeing nothing but hole after hole after hole.
Yeah.
And these aren't shallow pits. These are deep excavations. They are churning the earth.
And here's the detail that really stuck with me, and it's kind of a brilliant piece of detective work by Raul, even if it is depressing. He talks about how you can actually date the destruction by the trash the looters leave behind.
Yeah, this is a fascinating point. It's almost like stratigraphy, the study of rock layers, but for crime.
Right.
Raul notes that while these guys are digging up sites that are 2,000 or 3,000 years old, they're dropping their own garbage into the pits.
So you're looking at an ancient grave, and next to it is a candy wrapper?
Exactly. He describes finding cigarette packs that haven't been manufactured since the 1980s.
Oh, wow.
Or soda bottles with logos from the 1990s.
So you can literally look at a sector of the desert and say, okay, this area was destroyed during the recession in the 80s, and this area was hit in the 90s.
Precisely. It shows you that this isn't a new problem. It's generational. It's been happening for decades on an industrial scale. They are stealing history and replacing it with literal garbage.
It's like a landfill of human remains. And I want to pause on human remains because I think we get desensitized to that term. We hear mummy and we think of a museum exhibit behind glass. But Raul isn't seeing them behind glass.
No, not at all. He's seeing them desecrated. He describes walking through these looted fields and seeing skulls scattered everywhere, just everywhere.
God.
And the mummies. You have to understand, the Nazca and Paracas cultures buried their dead in these elaborate bundles, layers of beautiful, intricate textiles. They were buried with reverence.
And the looters, what do? They
just rip them open. They tear the limbs apart. Raul describes seeing mummies that have been torn limb from limb.
Why? Just to see if there's gold inside? Is that all it is?
That's it. They are looking for gold, silver, maybe high-quality pottery or metal artifacts. They strip the valuable items, the goods, and they leave the body to rot in the sun. It's a purely extractive process. There is zero respect for the history or the humanity of the person they are destroying.
It makes you wonder, who is buying this stuff? Because if you have an industrial scale operation, you need a market. This isn't just a guy selling a pot to a tourist.
No, this is big business. Raul uses the term eco-mafia.
Eco-mafia.
Yeah. It implies a sophisticated illegal trade network, similar to drug trafficking or wildlife trafficking. These artifacts, the unbroken pots, the gold masks, the pristine textiles, they aren't ending up in local museums in Lima. They are vanishing.
They're going abroad.
Exactly. Private collections,
Yeah.
wealthy buyers in Europe, in the United States, in Asia, people who want a piece of pre-Columbian art for their mantelpiece, and they don't ask too many questions about how it got there.
Or maybe they do ask questions, and that's the darker part. Raul told a story about meeting a Huaycaro, a looter in Miraflores, which is a nice district in Lima.
That story gave me chills. It really did.
Break that down for us. Why was he meeting a looter?
Well, Raul was investigating, trying to understand the network. And this guy, this Huaycaro, pulls out his phone, and he's not showing photos of his kids. He's showing videos of fresh looting.
Like, look at what I dug up this morning.
Worse, much worse. He's showing the act of digging it up. And the reason is terrifyingly logical. He explained to Raul that the buyers, these wealthy collectors, are paranoid about fakes.
Ah.
There are a lot of fake artifacts on the market.
Right, you don't want to spend 10 grand on a vase that was made last week in a kiln.
Exactly. So to prove provenance, to prove it's real, the looters film themselves pulling the object out of the ground.
That is incredibly dark.
It is. The crime itself becomes a certificate of authenticity. Here is the video of me destroying this ancient grave to prove to you that this gold mask is legitimate.
It's the marketing material for the black market.
And because the Peruvian government and the Ministry of Culture are so underfunded, and because the sheer volume of archaeological sites is so massive, there is almost no one out there to stop it. Raul mentions he is often the only person there. It's just him, his drone, and the ghosts of the past.
And the trash from the 80s.
And the trash. Always the trash.
It really sets the stage for why Raul does what he does. He's trying to document these things before they're gone. But speaking of things coming out of the ground in Peru, We have to address the elephant in the room.
Oh, yeah.
Or maybe the alien in the room.
I knew we were getting there. The mummies.
We have to. The Nazca mummies, the tridactyls, the three-fingered beings.
It's the topic that has taken over the internet. It's a whole thing.
Now, hold on. Before we get into the details, I have to play devil's advocate. Most of the scientific community has dismissed these as total nonsense, hoaxes. Why did Raul even entertain this?
That's a fair question.
Yeah.
And what I appreciate about Raul's take, and this is why I think he's a good guide for this, is that he admits he wants to believe. He's a fan of the mystery. He's not a debunker who hates the idea of the unknown. He grew up on fingerprints of the gods. He wants it to be real.
That's a crucial distinction. He's not approaching it with cynicism, but with hope.
Right. He looks at the weirdness of Peru, and we'll talk about the skulls and the bedrock pyramids later, which are genuinely weird, and he thinks, maybe, but then
he applies the scrutiny.
He does. He did a deep dive investigation with a researcher named Will from the channel Incredible History. They looked at the x-rays, they looked at the CT scans, and they looked at the way these things are constructed. And his conclusion...
It's pretty damning.
It is. He believes they are sophisticated hoaxes.
But sophisticated is the key word there, right? I think when people hear hoax, they think of papier-mâché or rubber doll, but these aren't that.
No, and that's what makes them so tricky to dismiss at a glance. They look convincing at first.
Yeah.
Raul explains that they're likely using real, ancient biological material.
So taxidermy.
Essentially, yes. Taxidermy with human parts.
Okay, that is horrifying. So they are taking the bones that the looters, the Wakeros we just talked about, are leaving scattered in the desert.
Exactly. Connect the dots. You have an industrial looting operation leaving thousands of ancient bones bleaching in the sun.
The raw materials.
You have a market that wants aliens. You have the raw materials right there for the taking.
So they are constructing a new being out of the spare parts of the ancestors.
It's macabre. But Raul points out something fascinating about the evolution of these fakes. He says they get better over time. It's like an iterative design process.
Like software updates, Alien 2.0.
Basically, yes. When the first batch of these mummies came out a few years ago, experts looked at the x-rays and said, hey, look at that finger bone, it's upside down. Or that joint there, that doesn't articulate. If that creature tried to bend its arm, the bone would snap.
They pointed out the bugs in the system, the glitches.
Right, and the hoaxers were listening, they took notes. So when the next specimen suddenly appears in a cave somewhere, those specific errors are fixed.
Oh, come on.
The bones are oriented correctly, the joints look a little more functional.
That is deeply suspicious. That's not discovery, that's product development.
It is. It suggests a manufacturing process that is learning from its critics. But the anatomical flaws are still there. If you look closely, they discussed specific specimens. I think they were named Montserrat and Maria.
Right, Maria's the big one, the one sitting up.
And despite the improvements, experts still point out disjointed joints bones that simply wouldn't allow the creature to walk or grab anything. It's a collection of bones that looks like a skeleton, but wouldn't function as a skeleton.
And there was that specific theory about the feet, the raised resection theory. This sounded like something out of a medical textbook. Can you unpack that? I want to understand how they do this.
Yeah, this is a known surgical technique. So imagine a human foot. You have the ankle, and then you have the long bones connecting the ankle to the toes. Those are called metatarsals.
Okay, the middle of your foot.
Right. If you surgically remove the metatarsals, the middle part of the foot, and then pull the remaining toes back towards the ankle, you drastically shorten the foot, but keep the long toes.
And if you cut off the outer toes, the pinky and the big toe,
you're left with 3 long digits. You can create a foot that looks tridactyl, or 3-toed. It makes the foot look elongated and alien, but it is fundamentally a manipulated human foot.
That is gruesome engineering. And then there's this specimen called Antonio. This one really sealed it for me, and I think for Raul too.
Yeah, Antonio was a small one, right?
Yeah.
Presented as a child or a teenager.
Right, a teenage humanoid. But when they analyzed the bone density and the condition of the feet, something didn't match.
The feet showed signs of severe old age arthritis.
Wait, so you have a teenage body
with the feet of an 80-year-old man.
Which implies parts were swapped. It's a kit bash.
It implies you were looking at a composite. A Frankenstein's monster made of ancient spare parts.
So why? Why go to all this trouble? I mean, constructing these things using ancient bones requires serious skill. You need anatomical knowledge. You need to know how to preserve the tissue. This isn't a weekend DIY project.
It's money, plain and simple. And not just selling the bodies themselves, although Raul mentions seeing text messages with buyers offering huge sums. It's the media ecosystem around it.
The content economy.
Exactly. Streaming rights, documentaries, disclosure events where you sell tickets. It is a lucrative industry to keep the mystery alive. If you prove it's a fake, the money stops. If you keep asking what if, the clicks keep coming.
It's a self-perpetuating mystery machine.
However, and this is important, Raul leaves a tiny 1% door open.
He does, even after the arthritis feat.
He acknowledges the weirdness of the region. He says, look, 99% sure these are fakes, but the Paracas region has so many other genuine anomalies that I can't say it's impossible.
And that leads us perfectly to the next topic. Because while the mummies might be glued together, the next thing we're going to talk about is undeniably scientifically real. And frankly, it's just as baffling.
The elongated skull.
The Paracas skulls. This is where the skeptics and the believers really start to butt heads. Now, standard archaeology has an explanation for this, right? It's head binding.
Right. Cranial deformation. It's a practice we see in cultures all over the world, from the Mayans to certain African tribes. You take an infant, whose skull is still soft and pliable, and you bind it with boards or tight cloth.
You physically force the skull to grow in a certain shape, like a cone head.
Exactly. Usually to mark status or nobility. And many of the skulls found in Peru show clear signs of this. You can see the flattening where the board was pressed against the forehead. It's a known thing.
But Raul says that doesn't explain all of them.
No. He highlights a few anomalies that are very difficult to explain with binding alone. Specifically, he talks about volume and weight.
Explain that. Why does volume matter?
Think about physics. If you take a balloon filled with water and you squeeze it, you change the shape. You can make it long and skinny. But you cannot change the volume of water inside. You can't magically create more space inside the balloon just by squeezing it.
So binding a head shapes the skull, but it doesn't make the brain bigger.
Exactly. But Raul cites data, and this is the controversial part, that some of these Paracas souls have 25% more cranial volume and weigh 60% more than a standard human skull.
Whoa, 60% heavier. That's not a rounding error.
That is the statistic. If that is accurate, you are talking about a biological difference, not a cosmetic modification. Binding doesn't add bone mass, it just rearranges it.
And then there's the Chongo skull.
Yes. This is a specific specimen Raul mentions. It has massive eye sockets, much larger than typical humans.
Yep.
And crucially, it lacks the sagittal suture.
That's the line that joins the skull plates down the middle of the head, right? Like the seam on a football.
Right. All humans have it, is where our parietal bones join. This skull apparently does not have it. The top of the skull is one solid plate.
I loved the analogy the host used in the conversation. He said, looking at these skulls with the huge volume and the giant eyes is like stuffing a balloon into someone's eyeball.
It's a disturbing image, but it captures the wrongness of it. It doesn't look like a modified human. It looks like something else entirely.
So what is the theory? If it's not just head binding, and assuming it's not aliens from another planet, what are we looking at?
Raul discusses a migration theory. This is often attributed to a researcher named Brian Forster. They did some DNA testing. Again, this is contested by mainstream science, but it's part of the conversation. And the claim is that some of these skulls share genetic markers with people from the Black Sea or Caspian Sea region.
Wait, the Black Sea, that's near Russia and Turkey. That's the other side of the world.
Exactly. The theory is that there was a migration from the Caucasus Mountains to Peru about 3,000 years ago. A small group of people with a very different genetic makeup.
That would completely rewrite the history of the Americas.
It would. It implies transoceanic contact way before Columbus or the Vikings. And Raul connects this to another oddity, the presence of red hair.
Red hair on the mummies.
Yes. Some Andean mummies are found with red or auburn hair. Genetically, indigenous South Americans typically have thick, straight black hair. Red hair suggests a different genetic lineage.
It paints a picture of a much more interconnected ancient world than we usually give credit for. Or, as Raul puts it, just the sheer weirdness of Peru.
And that weirdness isn't just in the biology, it's in the geology. This leads us to what might be the centerpiece of Raul's work, the discovery of Paralin.
This is the part that blew my mind. This is the Indiana Jones moment, we promise.
It really is. Yeah. Raul finds this place on Google Earth. He sees these shapes on the coast. He takes his drone out there, and what he finds is just staggering.
Set the scene for us. What is Paralin?
We are talking about 16 platform pyramids.
16, not just one.
16 of them, sitting right on the ocean cliffside. But the most incredible part is the construction. They aren't built by piling up stones. They aren't mud bricks.
They are carved out of the bedrock.
Let's just pause on that for a second. Think about the engineering required. This is subtractive architecture. Usually you build a pyramid by adding material. If you make a mistake, You move the brick.
But if you are carving it out of the mountain...
You are removing thousands of tons of rock to reveal the shape. If you make a mistake, you can't put the rock back. It requires immense planning and effort. It's closer to sculpture than masonry.
And Raul argues that this site is incredibly old, older than the official dates.
The official dating from a brief 1970 survey says 1800 BCE, so about 3,800 years ago. That's the start of the ceramic age.
The pottery age.
Right. But Raul argues it's likely pre-ceramic.
Because there's no pottery.
Exactly. If people lived there during the pottery age, the ground would be littered with shards. It always is. But here, nothing. Just the bedrock pyramids. That suggests it could be 4,000, 5,000, maybe even 6,000 years old.
And they are aligned, right? This wasn't just a random arrangement.
Yes. This is incredible. Raul verified with his drone that all 16 pyramids face northeast. They align perfectly with the sunrise on the solstice.
So a massive bedrock-carved solar observatory that has been sitting there basically ignored for millennia.
Ignored and eroding. Raul points out that the wind and tsunamis are eating away at it. He mentions a tantalizing detail. There is a carved chamber, a room inside one of these bedrock pyramids.
A room inside the solid rock?
Yes. It was briefly noted in that 1970 survey, but the site hasn't been properly excavated or studied since. It's just sitting there, empty.
That's the heartbreaking part. He mentions that he is currently the only person with modern, high-resolution drone footage of this site.
Think about that. If he hadn't gone there, filmed it, and archived it, and let's say a big tsunami hits next year, that history could be gone forever, completely undocumented.
It really highlights the race against time. We think of pyramids as eternal, but they aren't, especially these ones right on the coast.
And Paralin isn't an isolated anomaly. It connects to the broader mystery of civilization in Peru. This brings us to the Norte Chico culture.
This is the cradle of civilization stuff. I think a lot of people hear Peru and think Inca, but the Incas are actually pretty recent, right, in the grand scheme of things?
Very recent. The Inca Empire was at its height in the 1400s and 1500s AD. That's, yesterday, archaeologically speaking. We're talking about Norte Chico, specifically the site of Corral, which dates back to 3,000, 5,000 BCE.
So these guys were building cities while the Egyptians were just starting to think about pyramids, maybe even before.
Contemporary with, or possibly older than, Guy said. And they had a very specific architectural signature, the circular sunken plaza.
And this is where Raul's Google Earth hobby paid off again.
It's a great story. He's looking at the map between two known valleys, Corral and Casma. Conventional archaeology says these were separate pockets of civilization. Raul wonders, why wouldn't there be something in the middle?
It makes sense. Why leave a gap? People don't just leave perfectly good valleys empty.
So he scans the satellite imagery, and he sees it, the signature sunken plaza shape, a perfect circle.
But spotting it is one thing. Going there is another.
He calls this ground truthing. He travels to the location, which is completely undocumented. He meets a local farmer named Luis.
Poor Luis. He probably thought Raul was there to rob him or something.
He did. Raul had to convince him, no, I'm here for the ruins. And once Luis realized Raul was genuine, he showed him the site. And it was exactly what Raul saw on the satellite, an unexcavated temple complex filled with pottery shards.
What fascinates me about the Norte Chico culture is the peaceful aspect. Raul mentions that for 1,000 years, there's no evidence of warfare.
It's a remarkable anomaly in human history. Usually civilization brings conflict, walls, weapons, broken skulls. But here, for a millennium, nothing.
So how did their society work?
A symbiotic trade system. The inland people grew cotton. The coastal people caught fish.
And they traded. The fishermen needed cotton for nets. The farmers needed protein from the fish.
Exactly. It wasn't based on conquest. It was based on mutual necessity. Cotton for fish. No weapons have been found in the archaeological record for that millennium.
That is a nice thought. 1,000 years of peace built on fishing nets.
And knots. We have to mention the quipu.
The knotted strings. I always thought that was just an Inca thing.
Most people do. The Incas used them for accounting and record keeping. But Raul points out that evidence suggests this language of knots goes back 5,000 years to Corral.
So they didn't have written words like we do, but they had a tactile language, a 3D language.
Which the Spanish unfortunately destroyed.
Okay.
They burned the quipus because they couldn't read them and viewed them as pagan or dangerous. We lost an entire library of history because it was written in string, not ink.
Man, the Spanish really did a number on history, didn't they? It's a recurring theme.
Conquistadors were not known for their preservationist instincts.
No. Speaking of things the Spanish couldn't destroy because they were too big.
Let's talk megaliths.
Sacsayhuamán.
The fortress above Cusco. This is where the engineering gets truly high strangeness.
These stones weigh up to 200 tons, and Raul describes them as looking like marshmallows.
It's the melted look. The stones fit together so perfectly, irregular shapes, not uniform bricks, that you can't slide a piece of paper between them, and the edges are rounded and soft, as if the stone was pliable when it was placed.
So how did they do it? The conventional explanation is copper chisels and pounding stones, but Raul and Joe discuss a wilder theory: plant acid.
This is a persistent local legend. The idea that there was a bird or a plant that possessed a substance capable of softening stone.
Like a chemical agent that turns rock into putty.
Theoretically, it would explain the marshmallow deformation. The stones settled into each other while soft, then hardened again. It sounds like science fiction, but local folklore insists on it.
And then you have Chavin de Hontar. This place sounds terrifying and amazing.
It's an underground complex, a labyrinth of tunnels, and deep inside there is the Lanzon monolith, a fanged deity statue carved into a massive stone pillar.
Raul said he felt altered just walking in there, like physically felt different.
He described feeling high or dizzy, and that might be by design. The site was built for acoustic rituals. The tunnels channel sound in specific ways. And we know the Chavin culture used the San Pedro cactus, a potent hallucinogen in their rites.
So you're deep underground, in the dark, tripping on cactus juice, with roaring acoustics, staring at a fanged god.
It was likely a sensory overload designed to induce a religious experience, or maybe just pure terror.
And yet, in modern times, you aren't allowed to take a picture with flash.
Chuckles. Yes, the bureaucracy of the sacred. The guards forbid flash photography because they claim the flash damages the stone.
Which is ridiculous. It's stone, sunlight hits it, it's been there for 3,000 years.
It's absurd, but it highlights the control mechanisms. They gatekeep the experience.
Speaking of underground, Raul also mentions the descent tunnels in Cusco, Zone X.
This is where the conversation leaned into horror territory. These are claustrophobic, man-made, or modified tunnels that go deep into the earth.
Raul said he went in, but he got scared. And this is a guy who goes to the desert alone. That says something.
He mentioned the story of a guy getting stuck, head first, unable to move back or forward, dying in the dark.
Nightmare fuel. Absolute nightmare fuel. And there were stories of kids wandering in and never coming out.
It touches on the darker side of exploration. Not everything is a temple to the sun. Some places are just voids.
This brings us to a major theme of the episode, the conflict between the explorers and the establishment. The gatekeeping.
Raul is very vocal about his frustration with mainstream archaeology. He feels they ignore evidence that disrupts their timeline.
He brought up the site at Vignac, right? Megaliths 50 feet deep under Wari ruins.
Yes, you have crude Wari construction on top mud and small stones, but underneath you have precision megaliths. The mainstream says the Wari built it all. Raul says, look at the difference. The foundation is clearly from a much older, more advanced culture that just built on top of it.
He used a great metaphor for this friction, the truck in the tunnel.
It's a classic lateral thinking puzzle. A truck gets stuck in a tunnel because it's too tall. The engineers are arguing about how to chip away the tunnel ceiling or dismantle the truck.
All the complicated solutions.
Right. And a farmer walks up and says, just let the air out of the tires.
I love that. Sometimes you don't need a PhD. You need common sense. You need fresh eyes.
And that's what Raul and the citizen archaeologists bring. They are the farmer. They are saying, hey, have you looked at Google Earth? Have you noticed this alignment? They aren't burdened by the dogma of what should be there.
But the academics aren't the only problem. The real villains here seem to be the land traffickers.
This is the real immediate threat. It's not just time eroding these sites, it's modern development.
Raul talked about farmers and developers just paving over ruins to plant crops.
And it's violent. The story of Ruth Shady is chilling. She is the legitimate archaeologist who discovered Corral, the oldest city we discussed.
She was shot.
She was shot by land traffickers. They killed her dog as a warning. The government provided her with one security guard.
That is insane. You discover the cradle of civilization in your country, and you get shot at by guys who want to plant avocados on top of it.
It highlights the desperation. Raul tells the story of a woman farming on a ruin. She tried to call the Ministry of Culture to ask for permission or guidance. They never replied.
Yeah.
So to survive, she destroyed the ruin to expand her farm.
It's a tragedy of bureaucracy. If the government doesn't step up, history gets erased by poverty.
Exactly. It's complex. It's not just evil looters. It's a systemic failure to value heritage over immediate survival.
Before we wrap up, we have to talk about the natural world, because Raul found some weird stuff that wasn't man-made. Whale bones in the desert.
The Ocakage Desert. It used to be the ocean floor millions of years ago.
And they found the heaviest animal ever there.
Yes, a colossal ancient whale. A fossil that completely changed what we thought was possible for animal size. But the detail I loved was that ancient people, humans who lived there much later, used the fossilized whale vertebrae as stools.
Sitting on a million-year-old whale bone, that is recycling at its finest.
And the fossilized poop. Coprolites.
Laughs. We can't forget the poop.
It sounds funny, but fossilized whale scat is a goldmine for understanding the ancient ecosystem. But again, Raul notes that these fossils are also being trafficked. It's another layer of looting.
The conversation ended on a surprisingly philosophical note about social media. Raul calls it the toxicity of online debate.
It's the mummy wars. The debate over the alien mummies has become so polarized on Twitter and X that it's mentally draining.
People are vicious. If you believe, you're an idiot. If you debunk, you're a shill for the government. There's no middle ground.
Raul's strategy is smart. Post and ghost. Put the evidence out there, share the video, then walk away. Don't read the comments. Don't engage in the fight.
He mentioned Jelly Roll, the musician, doing something similar, giving up the smartphone and just using YouTube to learn, finding peace and disconnecting.
It's a lesson for all of us, really. The mystery should inspire wonder, not hate.
So what does this all mean? Why should we care about holes in the Peruvian desert or arguments on Twitter?
Because, as Graham Hancock says, we are a species with amnesia. We don't know our own story. Sites like Paralén, civilizations like Norte Chico, they challenge our timeline. They suggest we were sophisticated much, much earlier than we thought.
And Raul's work is digital preservation. Even if the tsunamis take the pyramids or the land traffickers pave over the temples, we have the data now. We have the footage.
It's a backup drive for human history.
Okay, we've unpacked a lot. Now I want to throw two big questions out to you, the listener. We want you to think about these.
First question. Based on the evidence of the faked mummies, but the genuine anomaly of the skulls, do you think we are looking at a lost branch of humanity or just elaborate human rituals we don't understand yet?
That's a good one. A forgotten cousin or a strange tradition. And second, Raul advocates for letting the air out of the tires, bringing outsiders in to solve archaeological mysteries. Do you think amateur explorers with technology like Google Earth are the future of discovery, or do they risk damaging history without academic training?
The tension between the citizen and the institution. It's the defining battle of modern archaeology.
Mull that over. Let us know what you think. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the unknown history of Peru.
Stay curious.
See you in the next deep dive.